evening. Welcome to the May edition of Your Questions Answered. I'm Michael, KB9VBR.
And I am Jose, KD Nueve, CJ. I don't know. My Spanish is terrible. Happy Cinco de Mayo, guys.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
and a belated May the 4th be with you as well. There we go.
There you go.
And for all my friends in labor, happy May Day, Labor Day. Not Labor Day, but International Workers' Day.
International Workers' Day, too. There's a lot of celebrating this week. So.
It's already the first week of May, and we're 3 holidays in, guys.
I know.
It's going to be a rough one.
That's crazy. Well, as always, this is for you, the viewer, your questions answered. So if you've got any amateur radio related questions, leave them in the chat down below. We'll try to get to as many as we can. It looks like people are starting to fill up into the into the chat room. I see let's see if I can get my mouse back here. I need a producer to handle these things, but we got some people starting to show up.
Be your producer.
Excuse me, David from Central California. He's in the house, so thanks for joining us. Roy, happy Vinci de Mayo.
I think it's Ray, not Roy there, but
Ray. Oh, I'm sorry. It's W3OY. My dyslexia.
That'll goof you up there real quick, right?
Yeah, my dyslexia got the best of me. And Kevin from Utah. Good evening, Kevin. So glad you made it into the live stream tonight. So
yeah, well, it's going to be a fun one tonight.
Yeah,
we got a lot of things to talk about. First and foremost, finally, the weather is changing.
Yep,
it hit 70 yesterday. I'm excited.
There's 60s today. We're going to be by Tuesday. We might hit 80 degrees.
Yeah, so. and storms even. I'm all for that. So
we're skipping spring altogether. We're just going from winter into summer.
I think we're on 5th winter right now, and we're going into summer, right?
It was just to give you an idea. Last week, not this past week, but the week prior, I think it rained just about every day of the week, and our high was about 40 degrees.
40, 45. I think we hit 50 once or twice, but it was a miserable 40 to 50 degrees out.
Yeah. And April was pretty much like that. You'd get, it'd just be cold, temperatures in the 40s, and just rain, so much of it.
It's been a few years since we've had an April like that. And then all of a sudden, the switch flips, and it's all of a sudden it's summer.
Yep.
So it's going to be, I already got I got one camping trip planned coming up in 2 weeks. I got my vacation planned coming up in June, and then I'm working until August.
Oh.
That's it. It's like by the second week of June, don't call me, don't text me, don't message me. I'm gone. Right.
I might need some guest hosts for July and August then.
You may.
Well, probably for June too, because I think you'll be already in Belize.
No, let's look at the calendar real quick. Survey says. I think I'll be able to make the June one. So if people don't know, I'm going to Belize. Still waiting on my license. Fingers crossed. That'll be the second time I've operated from Belize. So so Thursday, June 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. I think I'm leaving that weekend. So
okay.
Fingers crossed on that. We should still be able to do it. Hopefully I'll have a license in my hand and we can talk about that. And I tentatively have a Parks on the Air activation plan.
Oh yeah.
And it's an entity where the boundaries are kind of fuzzy. So we're just gonna go with it. And you know what? If someone can prove me wrong, I've actually reached out to the gentleman that handles all the entities for Belize. And he's even a little fuzzy on where the lines are on them. Okay. So I'm doing the best with Google Maps. It's a beach. Hey! And I'm just going to take the golf cart over there, the 897. We're going to fire it up. And
there you go.
We're going to get some contacts.
All right.
And so sad news. Michael and I this weekend, I have an FT100D, old Yaesu radio, great little portable radios. The VHF, UHF stuff on them was a little sketch. Every one of them was blowing a final, I think. and the finals are unobtainium. But
Yep.
it still had HF, but it wasn't working. I couldn't figure it out. I could make a couple contacts on an activation, and I'll just be skunked otherwise.
Mhm.
So we went out, hooked up the radio, made a few contacts, nothing. We take Michael's 891, plug it into everything else I have, everything works. Like I'm just breaking through pile-ups.
Yep.
Really. So the 891 is going to have to go on the bench. But in the meantime, I'll just take the 897, or not the 891, the FT100.
FT100, yeah.
The 897 is a great radio. It's just a little bigger. I can still put it in the backpack, the go bag, take it on a flight, no big deal. I was just trying to think smaller is better for travel. So, anyways, no big deal. This will be the second time that I've been to Belize and licensed. Third time total that I've been there. Last time the call sign was Victor 31 Juliet X-ray. So things to know. The more you know, right?
That's right.
If you see a Victor 32 call sign, that is basically their version of a technician class. And a Victor 31 is their version of an extra class. So they only have 2 classes of licenses. Okay, so and you probably won't see a Victor 32 on HF because they don't have HF privileges, much like our technicians don't. So, and of course, I think I may have said this before, but the Belize, I have the envelope here. Oh yeah, Public Utilities Commission, their version of the ULS database. You're familiar with the FCC's ULS database. Their version of the ULS database for amateur radio is a notebook. So hopefully they could just page back to the page I bought and give me the same call sign, right? In fact, the email I got this last month was from the same lady I saw 5 years ago at the desk. So,
well, that sounds promising then. So
at least they have consistency, right? I don't know. I'll probably have to go to Belize City again.
I'm guessing there's not that many hams from Belize, so
you're right. There's not a lot. I think most of the licenses that they give out are probably reciprocal.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a week on a beach. You can't say no to that. It'd be nicer if it was in June, but seeing just about everything was free, I'm not going to complain about the dates.
There you go. So we got some questions are starting to fill up into the chat rooms. So if you've got questions, drop them. We'll try to get as many as we can. But I think for a moment here, we're just gonna share some of these cards and letters. I did get a few really cool QSL cards this month, so I'm gonna see if I can embiggen myself.
Embiggen yourself?
Embiggen.
Is that something you could see on YouTube?
Let's see how we can.
Oh, hey, that's me again. There you go.
There we go. It always picks you as a default for some reason.
Well, can you blame it?
KY4IK. I like this one, the bagpiper. That's Birmingham, Alabama. KF0EVZ from Iowa, Tama, Iowa.
Yeah, there you go. Bet you he was on 40, not 20.
That one was on 40.
Hey.
Oh, here's a local, KD9SZN.
Okay.
So Anago.
From Anago or Wittenberg?
Well, he's got an Anago address. Okay. So I think it's State Highway 47, so it's kind of halfway between the two.
Yeah, there we go.
So in fact, I got another local too. The locals are sending me cards. Good old Dave, KC9LFG. He's been on the live stream a few times, not as a guest, but as a participant.
So I think he's a member of another club in town. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. So I know that the first week of July, I think they have a big event coming up. So in the Wisconsin area, I know they're having a fox hunt and a banquet.
Hey, I'm gonna have to remember that. Oklahoma, KC5 of UXO.
Very nice.
KO4 UOF, covered bridge. That one's a little hard to see. And this is my favorite, K9ABR. Save this one for last.
Hey, that kid got a beer in his hand?
He's holding a copy of Become a Radio Amateur.
Oh,
So it's kind of hard to see, but this is like a 70s era transceiver he's plugged into. Andrew there in Chicago. So
nice. I like it. Now, did you have an eyeball QSO with him when you were down at the park in Chicago?
no, unfortunately not. I worked him when we were at the park, but not no face to face. So
So tell us about this park. So they have a
okay,
caboose. The
yes.
hams are in it, and there's a beer fridge. Did you say?
Well, so there's not a beer fridge.
Okay.
The beer, so this park, the Santa Fe Prairie State Natural Preserve in suburban Chicago it's in an industrial park. So it's right next, the big UPS hub that's
Oh yeah,
all
sure.
the,
I know all the hubs, right?
yeah. All of the packages go there. It's right there. You're driving around, dodging trucks and a whole to get there. But so it's a little 11-acre park, and it's along the Des Plaines River. Well, on one side of the road where the prairie is, that's all owned by the state, and then the other side of the road, that's the shoreline for the Des Plaines River, that's actually owned by Cook County. So the state's insurance carrier does not allow the volunteers to have beer on the premises in the caboose,
Okay.
but they can walk across the street and sit at the picnic table and drink. So if you show up on a work day, you might, rake some stuff up and crack a cold one. It's a nice little park, and you can, if you want to operate from the caboose, it's up in the cupola, they set up a table. So you sit in the seat where the conductor sits, and they got power and an antenna port, and just go crazy.
Well, there you go. Sounds like a plan. And if you're a foamer, that's even better.
Even better, yeah. So,
oh boy.
Kevin wants to know, you can drink and operate at that exotic location. What would be your drink of choice down
You're
there?
right. Wow. Did that sound like a little forceful, a little too much? It's not going to be that crazy.
No.
We tried that once. It didn't turn out well down there. No, realistically, there's only one beer in Belize, and it's Belican. They have a couple different flavors of Belican, but it's Belican. So you'll get Belican or you'll get nothing. Actually, I think they have Guinness.
Hey.
So the Belican Brewery can make Guinness. And then there's Lighthouse beer, which is like Belican Light. There's no Budweiser, there's no Miller, there's no Coors, there's nothing else down there. That's it. Plenty of cocktails. I believe they call the cocktail of Belize is called the Panty Ripper, which is like a mixture of rum, orange juice, and a couple of other things. You can imagine why they call it the Panty Ripper. But I tend to stay away from those types of drinks. I'll probably just have a couple beers.
Yep.
Maybe a Bloody Mary or two or a dozen.
There you go. Well, you got to have breakfast.
Right, exactly. So we'll be out on Ambergris Key, which is an island off the mainland. So you fly in on a commercial flight, and then you take a little puddle hopper out there. And it's a small airline when there's only one pilot, and the co-pilot seat is actually an extra seat for a passenger. I've flown up there. It's not that bad. You talk to the pilot a little bit. You get to know him. He tells you about his kids. You say, "Hey, can you watch out a little bit? We're trying to fly here."
So, all right. We got a couple good questions here. And first off, Cliff is asking, am I coming to Dayton, Ohio in a couple weeks for the Hamvention? And unfortunately, the answer is no.
One of these years, I think so, maybe.
Yeah, I think Yeah, it sounds like it was kind of up in the air this year. So I did. Hamvention's one of those things you almost have to plan a year in advance if you want to get a room in a reasonable distance away. So,
Right. But on the other hand, it's kind of like Mecca. You have to go there once in your
you have to go there. Yeah. But I think now that I think that now that there's we're not so there's things aren't so up in the air that we can regularly expect it. Maybe we're gonna have to plan a road trip for next year.
There we go. We would need some sponsors. Looking at you
Yeah.
guys like maybe MJ or Yesu or someone else out there that wants to sponsor two guys with a radio show.
There we go.
Yeah.
That would be fun. Yeah. Well, but yeah, we could. Yeah, maybe we can. Yeah, now that we, if we put our sights on 2023, we can certainly put something together that would be
as long as
compelling.
Our wives let us.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing. The wives got to let us.
Guys got to let us. Mine wouldn't care.
Like you're going.
She just
adios, muchacho.
Yeah, she'll just take her checkbook and go the other direction. So
you'll take her checkbook and yours. What'd you do? I bought goats. Why did you buy goats? So I can get stuff to weave with, right?
There you go. So in lieu of that, actually, we're going to be doing something real fun that weekend. So that's the same weekend we'll be heading up north to the marathon on the island.
Yeah, so we'll be at Madeline Island in Lake Superior that weekend. And we will be helping out with communications with a local ham group that travels up there. So it's nice. So this is one of those things where it's kind of nice to be a ham. We get the free ferry pass over and back, and we get lodging, which is a campground site for the weekend. I think you and I did this 3 years ago, 2019.
3 years, yeah, 2019, because then it was canceled 2020 and 2021.
So the story about this was, so it's on a Saturday, and this is up in Lake Superior, and it's middle of May, so anything could happen in Lake Superior in the middle of May. And that Saturday was cold, wet, and rainy. It was bad. And Sunday was getting worse, so much so that they said they were going to shut the ferry service down on Sunday because there was a gale warning. So right after the marathon, we had to pack up our gear, our tent, and everything. You had the camper, I had my tent. I had to pack everything because I don't sleep in the camper with him. I just want to let you know that. It's kind of tight space in there. It gets a little uncomfortable. But we had to pack everything up and hightail it to the ferry dock to get out of there, or else, because there was I don't know how many participants in the marathon, but plus everyone else there is trying to get out at the same time. It was crazy. And then we had to drive 4 hours back home. It wet. All my gear was wet. I think I had it hanging up in the basement for a week afterwards. So
that was a fun trip, and I'm looking forward to doing that in 2 weeks. And like I said, then for next year we'll have
to go to Tom's Birth Down Cafe.
Yep,
the place so nice. They burned it twice.
It'll be a good time. So, all right. So, let's see. We got a couple questions, and I'm gonna work my way backwards here because this is a nice, fun one. The Vox Guitars Rock says, "Is 10 meters ever making a comeback?" And I think the answer is probably it most certainly is. It has been. It
really has been. I've been seeing more and more posts. 10 is opening up. Watch it. I mean, don't watch the Sun number widget like on QRZ. Don't watch that. Get out and call CQ on 10. That's the only way to know if it's opening up. Because it's kind of one of those up and down bands a little bit, but get out there, just call. And you'll be surprised. Same thing with 6 meters. Get out there and call.
Yep. The thing with 10 meters is it can be wildly unpredictable. So you never really know when it's gonna, when it's gonna open up or how it's gonna open up. And as we crest the peak, of the sunspot cycle, 10 meters will be reliably open, almost all the time.
And we're nowhere
But
near the peak yet.
we're nowhere near the peak. We're probably a third of the way up the climb.
I think we got 2 or 3 years before it peaks, and then we still got a couple of years after the peak as well.
Yep. So that means it's going to be wildly unpredictable. It's if there's good ionization, sunspots, then 10 opens up.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you don't really know unless you try.
Yeah.
So give it a shot. Daytime hours are always the best. Call CQ or listen around. There's
daytime and gray line. Gray line is 10 on gray line is a very popular time, especially if you want to hit Japan and stuff.
Yeah.
So if you got the old Rat Shack 10 meter mobile radio, dig it out, get her back on the air.
Yep. Or listen, is that Georgia beacon still running? The mouth from the south.
So I don't know. So we're talking about Kilo Charlie for Tango Victor Zulu.
Tango Victor
Kilo
Zulu.
Charlie for Tango Victor. The guy gets on 28-425 or just call CQ like a freight train, right? I think in the past year he's migrated from 10 meters to parks on the air.
He's been doing a lot of parks. Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But you can always reliably know when 10 meters will, because he'll be calling us 28-425 so much that I would turn to 28-425, and if I could hear him, I know 10 was open. I didn't even go down to the beacon section, right? Because I think beacons are 28-250 to 28-3.
Yeah. Because voice starts at 28.3, so the beacons are around 28-280-ish and change. So
right, I thought it was 250 to 300, but it could be 280. Anyways, so spin your dial below 28-300. Listen for the beacons, right? And then you can start hearing some beacon. If you start hearing CW down there in that 50 kc section, then you know it's open. If you know CW, you can identify where those beacons are at. That'll tell you which direction is open.
Yeah. So So listen for 10. Cruise it every once in a while to see if it's open. And if 10 is open, you always check 6 meters, because if there's an opening on 10, there's a good chance there's going to be an opening on 6.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If you're if you're a technician looking for some HF stuff, that's there you go. It's
right. So rewind the shack fire we all know about. I still have a 6 meter antenna with good coax, so I'm tempted to get that fired up here in the next week or two if I have a life anymore, and start calling on 6 meters, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So 10,000 plus miles have been possible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've heard from the United States to the South Pacific and Japan has been open a few times. So you don't need to run a lot of power. This is 100 watt. This is 100 watt band, guys. Fire it up and see what. I mean, if you got 1,500 watts, I mean, sure, I guess you can go ahead and fire her up. But you'll be surprised what 100. You'll be surprised what 50 watts will do on 10 meters when it opens up. It's
yeah. So. All right. Yeah. So it's a fun band. And check it out. It's the last couple of times I've activated parks. I've cruised 10 meters. I've heard some South American stations, but so it's stuff's out there.
Yeah.
Let's see. How come you don't use I think this is supposed to be Vox, VOX with your yellow Heil headset. I see you the external push to talk. Just curious. From Christopher there. I think that the main reason is that I don't use Vox is sometimes I mumble under my breath.
Sometimes he says things you can't say on the air.
So I prefer I prefer
George Carlin of ham radio.
Yeah. I prefer the push button. And also I don't know. Maybe it's on my early days of HF. I knew this one guy that always used Vox with his microphone, and in order to get the Vox to capture, to lock onto his voice, he'd always start his sentences with and then and then go into talking. So
yeah. Well, I think one of the things too with Vox doing like a Parks on the Air activation is that you always have a little bit of background noise, right?
Yeah.
There's always
Hmm.
a little breeze, or maybe you're in a more, the park is a little more active. There's always something kind of going on in the background, especially wind noise. So I don't know about. I'm not a big Vox fan. I'm not a big headset guy either. I like to just give me the hand mic and let's rock and roll. Um, but I think with that, and then if you use Vox, you kind of got to tweak it a little bit every time, depending on the circumstances and the conditions. And who wants to do that, right? If you
Yep.
got to set
Yep.
up, if you got Vox set up in your basement, you don't really ever have to tweak it. But if you're using it out in the field and you're moving around quite a bit, I think you probably have to deal with it a bit more.
Yep. Exactly. So, okay, we've got a question here from Travis. He's asking us, what's the advantages does 52 mix toroid give me over a 43 mix when building an end-fed half-wave antenna?
I don't know. I don't know, Travis. Michael, let's file that one. Do you know?
Yeah. Well, actually, what I'm doing, I'm pulling up the chart.
Okay.
Let's see here.
I'm assuming that the toroid, you can store more inductance in there. So if the mix, whatever it is, it's a heavier toroid. You're going to be able to have more inductance in that coil, because that's why
Yeah.
I mean, you could have an air coil, but you don't really get a lot of inductance when you put steel in there or iron, which is basically what the toroid is. Then that'll help you with concentrating the inductance. So it's probably something along that line. But to give you a more specific answer, I'd really kind of look into it. But let's see what Michael's got here.
Excuse me. The big difference is that, and now this is really hard to see. I wish I could blow this up a little bit. Let's see if I can make this bigger.
There you go.
There we go. It really has to do with the frequency range of the toroids. So the let's see. The yellow is 31. The blue is 61. They don't have 52 in there. 43 is the black. And you could see that the toroids sort of have different responses based on their mix, their permeability.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, 75, 31, 60. Yeah, they don't. I wish they'd have a better chart here. As you can see, some materials like are. This is probably a little bit better chart. Most commonly used in end-fed half-wave antennas is either the 43 mix or the 31 mix, and both of them work really well on the HF bands. You'll notice that the 31 material has a little bit more, as you get towards, if you look towards the left of the graph, it has a little bit higher permeability between 1 and about 7 megahertz. So if your end-fed half-wave antenna is going to be using, is going to be focused on say the 75-80 meter band, you're probably going to want the like the 31 mix. And then if you're looking at the higher bands, 40 and higher, you may want something with a little, with a different mix, like the 43 or even the 52 material. So that's
we'll look into this.
Yeah.
To be continued, I think, because I think there's a little more to it than that.
There is.
This might be video material right here, my friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then, Brian said, the difference in toroid mix affects which part of the SWR curves are further from the resonance. So 43 chart line goes up as the frequency goes up. So if you look at the sweep, you'll see it follow a similar curve. So different materials will favor different frequency ranges in essence. So it's
well, hold on. Go back to his statement there.
Yeah.
Go back to his statement. So difference in toroid mix affects which part of SWR curves are further from resonance. but in essence, an end-fed half wave. So if you do an end-fed half wave for 40 meters,
Mm-hmm.
it is resonant, but it has a high impedance of like 4,000 to 6,000 ohms.
Yeah.
I have to. I got to wrap my head around this. This is something where I got to think about this a little bit. But we're going to get an answer on this one. I think our friend there, Brian, has got a point, but I
Yeah.
think there's a little more to it. And let's dig into this because
I think it's I think you're right. I think the answer here is not fully defined,
right.
but just a simple answer would be the type of material affects the the frequency range that your transformer can adequately handle.
Right.
I'm gonna go
And
back here.
generally, when we do end-fed
Yep.
antennas, we're looking for lower bands, particularly because anyone can get a 20-meter antenna up in the air, really.
Yep.
That 10-meter antenna we can get up in the air. When we put these end feds up, we're looking for 40, 80, 160, we can get them, right?
Yep.
That's what we're looking for. So probably if you're just going to shoot from the hip, like a 31 or a 43 is what you're looking for. That's just me from what I've just seen there on that chart. But there's a little more to that. And because I don't know it, Michael doesn't know it, most of you guys probably aren't 100% familiar with it. Let's table it and find this out. I think
we're gonna we'll get a proper answer to this question because I think it deserves more discussion.
Yep.
I'm just going to refer here though to Palomar Engineers. They've got a lot of technical information when it comes to ferrite material. So I'm sure the answer is in there somewhere. So all right. So
Palomar's got everything, guys. That's like any store you wouldn't believe.
All right, we're kind of in a half. We're at the halfway mark here, so I just want to remind everybody that the support of this channel helps keep our wheels moving and providing content to you. And one of the ways you can do that is through our Patreon program. Patrons provide help. Not only do patrons receive benefit by being members of the channel, but also help us produce this content that everybody likes to see on a regular basis. So
it's like OnlyFans for hams.
There you go, only hams. So we're just going to acknowledge our patrons. Dave, our associate producers, our top level that help us with the mission. Dave, Paul, David, Brian, Rand, Jack, and Holger. Thank you so much. And our new supporter, Darren, thank you for being a member of our team.
Wonderful.
And you too can support the mission to inspire and educate with patreon.com/KB9VBR antennas.
Yeah. But we've always said this, and I think sometimes we're just half joking, but we do the tour of the full KD9 CGX shack, which the nickel tour is I'll probably give you a couple of cents back and change. But our club has been talking about, ham shack tours for a club. So we'll give a ham shack tour. So I'm thinking before my silly season starts here in the next month, Michael should come down here with a camera. We'll do a once around of the shack. And we'll just give it to our Patreon members for free or for their continued support. How about that? I think we're going to do that.
There you go. I think that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
So patreon.com/KB9VBR antennas. That's all we got to do. You don't need to give us a lot of money, guys. Just a couple bucks. That'd be great.
Yep. Keep us in
antenna wire.
Batteries and other types of wire. Keep us in wire. So there we
go. I don't know. Have you seen the price of wire lately? Holy smokes. Copper's over $4 a pound, guys.
Oh.
I have a box off to the side of like scrap wire. That's what I keep, and that's my antenna stuff. So that's like pretty soon I'm gonna come down here. I'm gonna see a little one of the little I can't even think of what they are. Lucky Charms,
Mhm.
Leprechaun.
Leprechaun, yeah.
Leprechaun down there in my copper box stayed. Hey, it's me pot of gold. Yeah. Oh, that's my copper. Get out of it.
Let's get out of this. Brian says, I just got an Outback. I can see now why Michael mounts his VHF antenna so low. Boy, if you ever pull the headliner off that vehicle, it is a sight to be seen.
So when you ran your Coax Rex, you came over through the headliner?
No, I didn't. Well, the edge, I went up the lift gate and then along the edge of the headliner, down the pillar, and then routed.
And then you come under by the rocker panels.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what I do.
Because that was easy. Those sections are easy to kind of peel off and
Right.
to get a cable through. But once you start looking in the headliner, all of a sudden you see like electronics and airbags and
no, my good stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Cars today, they're nothing like they were, a generation ago.
So if you do your own vehicle installs, hold on here, I got a call. I got to hit decline there. There we go. If you do your own vehicle installs, something to invest in are like glow sticks or fish sticks. So they're an electrician tool. They're thin, flexible fiberglass sticks, right, with a little hook on them. If you got to fish a piece of coax or some wire through a real tight space through an inner body panel, those things are amazing, and they're not really expensive. So think about that, and then you get it set, and you'll probably loan them to someone, you never see them again. But consider them. I've done that with my Explorer. I used them, and I really needed it. The truck didn't because I didn't really have any body panels to deal with. So.
Another spot where those would be real handy is working your way through the firewall.
Yep, I've used them in the firewall too. If you can find the little spot, there's like a grommet or something that's hidden, but you can always stick the fish stick through it. And they're flexible. They're really flexible. You can almost bend into a 45 or a 90-degree angle. But you can get that through there, and then you can just tape on your wire and pull it through.
Yeah, because invariably you end up behind the dashboard and just kind of working your way through that stuff. But sometimes if you can get that stick through there, you can. So it really helps you find those.
In my truck last fall, the Silverado, there's like a box, and like it's almost like a junction box. Like 3 or 4 cables plug into it. It's not like the control module, but there's 3 8-millimeter bolts you got to pop out, and then there's the cables go through the firewall from there. So if you pop that out, then you can get stuff in and out of there. The more you know.
There you go. All right. So I got a question last week via, I think it was somebody left a comment, and the person was asking, let's see, I was curious, he's curious if there was a particular reason, why where he's talking about me, haven't added an amplifier to your shack equipment. I enjoy and have learned a lot from your videos. Keep up the good work. So let's talk a little bit about amplifiers. And are amplifiers, do you think they're a necessity for the amateur shack, or is there other things we can do? Because I've got a feeling, and there's a reason why I don't have an amplifier, and there's a lot of little reasons, which kind of, the money thing. I live in a residential neighborhood, so I don't really have an antenna that would fully exploit the capabilities of an amplifier. I think that if I had an amp, I would end up burning a bigger hole into the clouds than what I already do, especially on the lower bands. And also, my house is 100 years old, and my 100 amp panel is maxed out. So if I knew a good electrician.
Thank you for saying a good one. I appreciate that. Not an average one. an average Joe, so to speak.
Well, no, I think an average electrician put in the last panel because it's a nightmare.
So, I mean, there are 120 volt amplifiers out there.
Yep.
So let's talk about a couple of things here. So there's 240 volt, 120 volt, and some are interchangeable. Issue is these do take a lot of current. Generally, if it takes less than 15 amps on 120, they'll run it on 120. It'll take even less. It'll take 50% less current if you run it at 240 because of Ohm's law, of course. So there's like the, I have one here. I just got one like 3 months ago, and it was given to me. It needs a little work. It's an Ameritron 811, AL 811. This is a 600 watt amplifier. You know, it's like the kicker on CV. You know, it's not 1500 watts, but it's a kicker. It's a tube amp, and it runs on 120 from the factory. Probably pulls about 10, 12 amps on 120 volts. You can rewire it for 240, and it'll take less current. But you don't have to under normal circumstances. Now, your bigger amplifiers, your full legal limit ones, those usually you want to run them on 240, like at a 20 watt or a 20 amp or a 30 amp circuit. And that requires a little bit more doing, so to speak. Now, I'm not telling people to go open up their fuse or breaker panel and start, running circuits. That's not for everyone, but it's not that difficult. But in Michael's situation, or if you have a house that's smaller, or maybe your fuse panel or a breaker, I say fuse panel, but a breaker panel is kind of pushing the limit. Consider one of those like AL 811s or something like that. It's not a full legal limit, but you can run it on 120 and just be fine.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm not a amplifier fan. The guys on 40, 80, and 160 all run amps. The guys who are doing the rag chews and stuff, they all do that. And that's fine. But my Elmer, one of the first things he said is that you can get more results tweaking your antennas without a tower and big beams than what you'll get with an amplifier.
Absolutely. And I think
an amplifier is kind of a crutch. Now, a really good antenna with an amplifier, oh boy. Yeah,
but see,
that things are great. But for the average guy, work on your antenna a little bit more. Put a little bit more money into the antenna, or put it into the feed line, and work on that before you get an amp, and you'll see great results. You really will. The amplifier is great when the band is just DOA, right? And then even then you're making some modest contacts.
Yeah.
So we're from the stable where antenna more, amp less. So
there's so much you can do to your station without having to invest in an amplifier to really improve your signal. It's the antenna's placement or position, the feed line, the other amenities in your shack, even a transceiver you're using, maybe a little bit of an upgrade with that, just better sensitivity, better receive, will help you, make those contacts. And what I've said is I don't have an amplifier, and I've never really had an issue making a contact that I wanted to make. So it's been working for me so far. And I think what happens a lot of times is new hams they get this mistaken impression that you need an amplifier because of all of the questions on the exam. We've got questions about amplifier usage on the general and the extra exam. And those questions are there for good reason, and you need to know that information. But I think it's a little, I don't want to say it's disingenuous, but it's or even selling them down a bad course, because it's not. But I think it just creates a mistaken impression that you need an amplifier because that's some of the stuff we're testing you on. So
Again, I'm not dissing amplifiers. Now, if you
No.
go buy a QRP radio and then you buy an amplifier for it, I might smack you up the head, right?
Mhm.
But all that aside, is I know a lot of people that run amps and they're great. They definitely serve their purpose.
Mhm.
Um, I think, especially in certain contexts, if you're working weak signal or EME or some other stuff, especially VHF, UHF, an
Yep.
amplifier is necessary for some of those things. If you want to
Mhm.
have a rag shoe with the guys locally on 80 meters at night, don't be using an amp at all.
Yeah.
That's really kind of silly, I think. And then there's that in between, that 80, 40, 20, the average user. Um, I guess if you're a serious contester, okay,
Mhm.
the amp is definitely something you'd probably consider.
Yep.
But if you just want to have a good time in the shack, you don't need an amp at all.
No, you
You
don't.
definitely don't need
Yeah.
to pick one going to a park.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. So, let's see. Applejack here brings up a good point. Just a question. What's the purpose of a 100-watt 2-meter amp? If you can't hit a repeater with a 50-watt radio, you probably can't hear the repeater to begin with. And that's a really good point, because what's the difference between 50 and 100 watts? 3 dB or a half of an S unit.
Right. So
So,
the 100-watt VHF amps. So there's two kind of VHF amps, really, right?
yeah, yeah.
There's the Mirage. Everyone sees the Mirage for $40 at a Hamfest, right?
Mhm.
Those are more for taking a 5-watt HT and bringing it up to 40, 50 watts, right?
Mhm.
And then there's the more serious VHF, UHF amps that are like Class A amps
Mhm.
that are for weak signal VHF, UHF, EME, sideband, meteor scatter, all those sorts of things, right?
Or repeater sites.
Well, that's a PA. So a PA
Yeah.
is a little bit different, So if you have like a solid state PA for a repeater, those are FM, and they're made just to bring up a very weak signal from the radio and the repeater, right? Their main reason is that the radio finals themselves in a repeater aren't necessarily full duty cycle, able to
No.
be transmitting for 30 minutes at a time, and just for day in, day out, year after
Mhm.
year after year. So what repeater builders do is they'll bring that power that transmit power down on their radio, probably to about 5 watts, because if you start getting below 5 watts, the radios aren't very stable.
No.
And then they actually use attenuators to bring it down to like 50 or a couple hundred milliwatts. And then with that 100 or 200 milliwatt signal, then they'll feed a PA. And they'll
Yep.
probably feed a PA, and that's probably like 60, 70% of what it can actually do. Because you don't want to run them full power. But even
Nope.
at 60, 70%, you're getting 100 watts out.
Continuous duty. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. But we also have to consider that power is overcompensating for what your losses is going up the antenna, because
Correct.
you have any connection you have duplexers, you have circulators, the antenna itself, the length of feed line that you have, even with heliacs, like inch and 7/8 heliacs or inch and a quarter heliacs, you have losses if you're going 200, 300, 400 feet up an antenna,
Mhm.
right? So you have to overcome a lot of that. You have 2 dB loss just going into a duplexer, 2 to 3
Yep.
dB sometimes. 2 or 3 dB is 50% of your power. So we try to get as much as we can with the PA, and then we still lose power going up to the antenna. So we're probably
Yes.
if we're 100 watts at the repeater, we're probably at 50 watts at the antenna, right?
Hmm.
Um, but height makes might, VHF and UHF,
That's
and
right. So,
but that's a totally different application of application of RF there.
mhm.
When we talk about an amplifier, we're talking about the Ameritrons and some of the other big
Yeah. Yeah.
modes. Again, I have one sitting here, right? Again, it was free, but I keep telling my wife it was free.
Mhm.
But again, to each their own. To each their
Mhm.
own.
Yep. Exactly. So,
People don't like going out to parks. Some people don't. Parks in the air is not for everyone. Some people love the contest. I can do about 45 minutes of contesting and I get worn out.
I heard some amazing signals on the Florida QSO party last weekend. Those guys were pushing it to the limit. So
those guys are running power.
Yeah.
Less than my child, right?
Yeah. I got a shout out here from Bob. So
thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thank you so much for your support, Bob. And I'm glad that Marine Band VHF antenna is working for you. That's good to hear. And of course, Alan, we're keeping the mission alive. So Alan, thanks for joining us. And the Bass Horseman just got his 6-meter antenna. So I've been building a lot of 6-meter antennas the last couple of weeks. April, May seems are popular months for those because you want to have that antenna in place for when the band opens up. Yes, this is the sporadic E of June and July. So that's
plant that copper J pole or copper cactus out in the backyard. Run it with some decent feed line and have fun.
Oh yeah, it's a blast. It's a blast when that 6-meter band opens up because you never know when it's going to go to. So, all right. Let's see. Kevin asks, do you and Joe work contests out portable together? Do you flip a coin on what call you're going to use?
No.
No, we don't flip a coin.
We do work. We always do winter field day together.
Yep.
We'll be doing field day together this year at a site unnamed yet. We haven't told everyone. Or did we tell everyone about that? I don't know.
Well, I think we've alluded a little bit, but I don't think we've really clued everybody in yet what we're going to do.
We'll save that for.
Should we save it for next month?
I think so.
Yeah, we'll save that for next month.
So a couple things that we've done. Michael and I are members of a radio club, and we've had permission to use the club call. We've done that quite a few times. Otherwise, I think once or twice we've used my club call, which is actually the club that I set up for my kids and my nieces and nephews, which is their great grandfather's call sign, W9KFD. So that's kind of the one that I usually say for the cabin. But if we're up there or something, we've used that a few times too, just to keep the call alive. But we don't use each other's call. I don't think we've
not usually.
No. And then if we're up with our friend, we have a friend up in the Squamish National Forest. He has a club. We've used his call sign once before, so his club call. But we don't use the personal calls if we're operating together. So.
Yeah, if we're doing a contest where we want to aggregate points, we'll borrow the club's call sign. So if you hear W9NA on the air, that's probably one of us or both of us.
Field day. It's someone from the club.
Yeah, someone from the club at field day. But if it was like winter field day or something like, or some other, or QSO party or something like that. So
can we tell the W9NA story from the QSO party a few years ago?
I think we've shared it a couple of times. So
it's always a good one. So W9NA was one of our founding members. He was like 17 when the club was founded in the early 1930s. He was a big contester, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So we're doing the QSO party, I think 3 years ago, Wisconsin QSO party under W9NA, because it was a club activity. We're all out there. And this guy comes back, W9NA, I haven't heard that call in 20 years. What happened to Reno? Well, Reno was 91 when he died, like in early 2001, I think. So he's been for 20 years. And he was, oh yeah, we used to always compete at was it sweepstakes?
Yeah.
They were like 1, 2, 3 at sweepstakes for years. So Reno was such a contester. We went through the club's archives this past winter, and we found their check logs from the 60s and 70s for all the contests. Holy smokes, they were like this.
Yeah, they were crazy. It was crazy thick. Yeah.
A ream of paper for a weekend for logs.
Dave reminded me, K0M. Dave and I did the Minnesota QSO party together, and we had a special event call for that too. So
it doesn't cost anything, I think, to get a special event call for a weekend.
No,
right? So you have a couple of friends who want to get together, and you're going to do something in your contest. get a special event call. Rock it out.
Yeah. Makes it easy, it's especially, because we were going into Minnesota. I think the 0 call helped a lot. Versus our 9 calls, and then you're not fighting on who's using what call.
Right. And a
when we do
one call is real easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
When we do parks together, usually there we'll just take turns. We'll run, 20, 30 minutes each. You use your call, I use my call. So it's
parks in the air is different though. That's
yeah.
Sometimes we try to see who gets the most.
Yep.
There might be a bet involved. It might revolve around beer. I don't know.
There you go. Here's a good question. Steven asks, for a CDL driver getting into the hobby, would you recommend an expanding pole for vertical HF temp setup or just a temporary wire sloper? It would be for HF when parked. I think a lot of truckers I know will use like ham sticks or bug catchers, like a High Sierra or something like that type tunable coil antenna. Those they'll mount on their trucks. But if you're parked, I would think a push-up pole and a sloper would work really well.
Well, you've used the ham sticks before.
Yeah. And
you've had some pretty decent results with those.
Yep.
So I mean, a ham stick is almost like a CB whip. It's a little bit loaded, but they work pretty well. So I think that's a simple solution, especially for a truck driver. So if you have a CB, you could run a CB off one, and then you have a separate mount for the ham stick, or you probably could just swap CB and the ham stick out too.
You could do that too. Yeah. Who knows?
One thing I would say though, some of those ham sticks get kind of long. Don't they?
I think they're the lowest band ones, like the 75 meter one is pretty. It's a little bit longer than but the 40 and the 20 they're both about the same size.
Right. So if you do, like, I know a lot of truckers mount them on the mirror.
Yeah.
So I would watch your height on that.
As long as you stay below 13.9 or whatever it is.
I mean, if you're parked and you want to screw it on and start going at it, be my guest. Check your height before you go down the road on that. But
yep.
you guys understand that more than I do. You could probably fill me in on.
Yeah. But and but if he's going to do it while he's parked, it's. I guess a sloper wouldn't be a bad idea, like a fiberglass pole off the.
Yeah, definitely, you could do that. That'd be pretty quick and easy. Wolf River coil. Setting that
there
up,
we go.
that would be another pretty easy one too. You could just pop that up on the ground and run the coax through a window.
So give you that'd be a couple of good options there. Not being a truck driver, I'm a little bit limited, but that would seem to work.
Well, what do you mean? You don't need a CDL for the Subaru? It's a stick.
Operated commercially.
Right. This here is a commercial vehicle. Cool.
That US DOT sticker on the side.
You start pulling into the weigh stations, and the state troopers start looking at you kind of funny. What are you hauling, sir? Step out of the car.
Ken asks, I've been using vertical antennas primarily, but having a difficult time getting out west from Michigan. Most of my contacts are south and east. Any tips, or is it just propagation?
What kind of vertical?
Tell
us, Ken. What kind of vertical?
It doesn't specify.
That's interesting, because in vertical, you got the lower takeoff angle. If you were just getting in like one region and you were running more of like an endless antenna, well, that'd be pretty understandable.
I would think if you're in lower Michigan, that you should be able to hit, 40 meters. I talk to Michigan all the time on 40 meters, so you should be hearing people in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa. 20 meters, in Michigan, you should be talking you should be hitting Colorado, Dakotas, Wyoming. So
Wisconsin and Michigan, it's a little bit harder to get California and the West Coast. Don't say it's not impossible. I've worked them all. It just kind of the skip. You're kind of in the skip zone there.
Yeah,
So sometimes
exactly.
with takeoff, here's an idea. If you're using, say, he's using a Wolf River coil and an empath. Okay, the Wolf River coil, is that ground mounted or you got that up a little bit? Think about that.
Yeah.
What if you put that on a fence post? Get it up a few feet and just see what happens. Play around with it a little bit.
Yeah, the Wolf River.
Yeah.
Yep. Ken's using the Wolf River coil and the empath style antenna. So it's
I have a buddy stick and I always put it on a tripod.
Now see, I always ground mount mine.
Yeah. And I don't know, and a Wolf River coil ground mounted seems to work great. I've had better response though with the buddy stick if I have it up in the air. Just a thought. The empath gets really tall, doesn't it?
It's about 18 feet.
Yeah, you get everything there. So that's a little different. If you have the empaths and you try to jack that up a couple feet, I think it's gonna, right?
Yeah,
maybe if you put that on a fence post or something that's sturdy. I want to put it on a tripod, but maybe on a fence post. Try that and see what happens.
What I would try too is I'd try changing your counterpoise, your ground radials. See if you can, if you want the West Coast, point them west. So
that's a very good point. Yeah, with the Wolf River coil, you could easily, if you do the standard 3 radials, kind of point them in a westerly direction.
Yeah,
the empath has a counterpoise, doesn't it?
Yes, they give you that 26-foot wire.
Okay,
and you can actually add more. They say you can add more counterpoises to it for better. But yeah, I think I would try adjusting your counterpoises. If you want to favor the West Coast, try pointing them west. So
I mean, it's not magic, but I would go with that. Every like I know the buddy stick material, and I'm sure the empath material. I haven't read that in a while, but I think it says in there is that the counterpoise, a singular counterpoise, does help with directionality, and it would lead me to believe that if you have multiple radials, it would do that as well.
Yeah. So all right, that sounds like he's gonna try playing with the radials. So hopefully we'll hear you on the air there, Ken. I'll be listening to Michigan this weekend. Got some more friends in the house there. Wild Cascadia, West Coast love. So
there you go.
Yeah, I know I've hit Oregon, Washington State, on 20 meters. It depends on how the band is working. I think I can.
What's the name of the QSO party for Washington and Oregon? Is that the Salmon Run?
That's the Salmon Run, yeah.
When is folks out there? What is the Salmon Run? Let us know.
Yeah.
Maybe Ken can do some prep, and then when the Salmon Run weekend comes up, hit her hard.
There we go.
That's a great name for a QSO party.
I think so. I love it. The Salmon.
Wisconsin should change theirs to the Bratfest, right?
The Bratfest. I was gonna say the Cheesehead. So. Oh, I got another question that came in a week or so ago. Stacy asks, do you know Bolton, Bolton 400 Coax is good or not? Amazon sells it as LMR 400, or is it a scam?
Is that the musician Bolton or the computer engineer Bolton?
I would.
Oh, come on, you guys, catch the joke. We had that one out in advance.
I looked it up. There's actually a Bolton 400 Coax, and it was like 100 feet of LMR was $54 or something, some insanely cheap amount. So
50 cents a foot?
Yeah, 50 cents a foot.
Ooh. Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's your LMR 400 is made by Times Microwave. So there's the legit Times Microwave LMR 400, which is the stuff. And then there's some private label stuff. DX Engineering sells a very good private label LMR under their brand. Cable Expert sells an LMR 400 under their brand that's very good. ABR sells an LMR under their brand that's good. And then there's all of this other cheap knockoff stuff.
Yeah.
And
if
what
it's on Amazon,
if it's not Times Microwave, yeah. But what happens with the knockoff LMR is that the center core, the center conductor, is copper clad aluminum. So you get the same specs or similar specs because the foam dielectric is similar to legit LMR. But the copper clad aluminum makes for a cable that is very stiff. It's hard to bend.
Yeah.
And it's also more fragile. If you flex it a lot, that aluminum is brittle and it's gonna break.
Right.
And I've talked to people that have used off-brand LMR, and they've put it up on their tower. A couple of years later, they're replacing it because it failed on them. So
let's talk a little bit. So LMR, there's LMR 400, 600, 800.
Yep.
That is
140,
a lower loss coax.
Correct.
Okay. So it's lower loss than like RG8, are definitely lower losses than RG58. Now, in the HF world, do you really need LMR 400? No. Unless you're running like a real long run out to like an antenna or something, then your losses may be reduced by that. But if it's 25 or 50 feet, you don't need that. I think in the VHF world, if you have a run of 25 feet, you can get away with RG8.
Yep.
I think if you are in the 440 and above, then you better spend the money to get the good stuff, right? I spent $80 on 2 feet of coax once.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but that was for like 10 gigahertz.
Yeah. People ask me all the time what kind of cable to get for VHF, UHF. And I say, if your cable run is more than 50 feet, just spend the money on LMR 400. It's
the LMR 400.
The LMR 400.
One of the other notable companies. I have bought Amazon Coax. Usually I get some RG8X. It lasts me a year or two on parks, and then I usually just toss it or I cannibalize it for a project. It's cheap. And if something happens when I'm camping or doing a Parks on the Air thing, I can just toss it. It's $25. It's not a big deal. LMR is a little more investment, but it's like you said, it's stiff. It's stiff. You're probably not running that through a windowsill for a short period of time. This is going to be a permanent install. LMR, I think, is a little bit better of an option. I knew a guy once that he had an apartment, and he just set up an antenna on the balcony. He was taking it in and out. And he's like, "Oh yeah, well this coax, it's not flexible." It's like, I said, "What did you get?" It's LMR 400. I'm like, really? Why don't you just get 25 feet of like RG8X? Seriously, and so I gave him 25. Like, here, I got a roll of it.
Yeah.
Use this, and he's like, "Oh," and you won't have any noticeable, appreciable difference in single.
Not a short run, yeah.
Right. So it depends on the application. But for the good stuff, stay away from Amazon. Palomar Engineers, Times Microwave, Pasternak. There's good companies out there that will sell you good coax.
If you're
going to spend the money and it's going to be permanent, do that.
There's two. Usually when I buy cable, I'm buying it from one or two companies. Either MPD Digital down in Georgia. They're a Times Microwave dealer, and Cable Experts out of Chicago.
Yes. Cable Experts sells on Amazon, I think.
Yes, they do. Both of them sell on Amazon, and I've ordered their cables through Amazon because the price was the same or similar to what was on the website, and it got faster shipping. So it's yeah, if you order, look at the listing, make sure that you get, it's a Cable Experts brand or an MPD brand or something. So, and not Michael Bolton brand. So because
the software engineer.
Don says, stay away from copper clad aluminum wire. Most speaker wires sold these days are copper clad aluminum.
Right.
I know I've been looking for some hookup wire, like Zipline. And you got to search to find the solid copper stuff.
So let's talk about wire and the conductors. So when we say copper clad, we have to understand that RF energy, or any electricity really, that is alternating current. And RF is an alternating current. The current flows on the surface or the skin of the conductor.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily the thickness of the conductor that we always look at for ampacity and for losses. It's the total outer surface area. So what you can do is you can get a cheap metal coated in copper, which has a lower loss, and you can use it. Copper, there's steel or copper clad steel wire. Some of these are very tough. If you're using it for an antenna, they're great. But this aluminum can be a very brittle metal. Okay, I've busted a lot of aluminum things the hard way. And solid wire is more brittle than stranded wire. And these are all solid conductors. So take a look at the specs. If it says copper clad aluminum, unless you're willing just to take the cheap stuff for now, maybe not go that route, right?
Or be aware that it's gonna, you could run into a potential failure, in a couple of years or so, especially if it's in a situation where it's going to be flexed or stressed, So.
Or if you live in a harsh environment like a Wisconsin winter, if it gets 30 below and the wind starts blowing, if you don't have something secured, it's just going to snap inside, and you won't know about it until you fire it up and you have problems.
Yep. So. All right, so a couple other people have. Let's see, we got some. Hey, somebody recognized your.
People put a little bit of brig right here, okay?
A couple of people have mentioned Messler and Poloni, or Messi and Poloni, I think is the actual type of cable. I don't have it's. I know that's an Italian cable. I don't have any experience with it.
That sounds kind of fancy.
But it's supposed to be very good cable. So
hey, Messi and Poloni guys, if you're looking for someone to sponsor,
there we go.
Hamfest next year, right?
Yeah. Don says we can get the good copper zip cord at the Home Depot. Home Depot has got a really good bulk wire selection, but it's not the cheapest.
No, but it's close by. You get it today, right?
Yep, that's right. And Shane says, my logic is use the inexpensive stuff to figure out what you're doing. So you have your shack set up and figured out, do it right and buy the good stuff.
Right. We've spent we've blown a lot of money on cheap stuff.
Yeah.
We're kind of at the point in our hobby that, we know what we want. So that's another thing too, is that when you're just getting into the hobby, go ahead and buy the cheap stuff. Learn from it,
It's with cable. I think it's for a certain extent, cable is one of those things where it's buy once, cry once. It's easier to replace an antenna than it is to have to rerun your feed lines. So if you're gonna go through all of that effort to install feed line inside your house, up your tower, do it the right way the first time, because it's easy.
That's a big thing right there to our friend.
Yeah.
So if you're going up a tower, pay the extra money, because you don't want to climb that tower again.
Yeah.
Or have someone else climb the tower, right? pay the extra money and just get the good, high quality coax and be done with it. Do the terminations right. Make sure you seal them up right. If you're just putting a tenant on the side of the house or maybe out in the backyard and taking it back in, buy the cheap stuff. Right.
Yeah. And since we're on cable, Sal asks, how about RG213? Is that good stuff? RG213 is a high-powered version of RG8U. So it's going to have roughly the same specs as 8U, but it's got better, higher. It's a mil spec cable. It's you can bury it. It's got higher power limits. So if you're going to get that amplifier, get the 213. 213 is commonly used in HF because it's a little lossy on VHF, UHF, but it's a good choice for the low frequency
stuff.
You
can get away with the cheap stuff on HF. You can use coax for cable TV RG59 on HF and get away with it. 75 ohm, it'll work just fine. When you get to the higher the frequency, the attenuation per 100 feet is much greater.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at. So it's not an Apple. So you say, I'm going to use 213. Well, what are you going to use it for, right?
Yep. So, yeah. Amtrak says it's nice to hear Elmer's talk to the new guys. It's okay to be cheap. So many times watching these live videos, the new guys get priced out of the hobby.
Oh, there's tons of cheap stuff behind me, guys. Tons of it. And you know what? When someone comes over and they need something, I just give it to them, right? You need, here, take it. I got plenty of it. Take some. I'd rather it go with someone that needs it and they learn something from it, right?
Yep.
I don't really care about the price. So.
And I think it's not so much being cheap, but I like to. Well, my kids call me cheap, but
I'll call you cheap.
it's more of it's frugal, and frugal is different than cheap. It just you want to spend your money wisely, and there's some things that it's good to invest in, and there's some things that you can get by with. I don't want to say skimping, but just being cheap and
make it work, right? Sometimes you just got to make it work.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll, like there's something, if I'm prototyping something or playing around with something, we'll find whatever scraps I can get and cobble something together. If it's, but if it's something that needs to last, then, or where performance is an issue, then then we look at spending money wisely, and not going for the latest shiny thing or so. Yeah. I'm on my second or my third HF transceiver in 23 years. So
I've gone through that in 7. That's stuff.
And my first one I had for 17. So
right. I'm not that way. I'm a little.
So
my name is Joe, and I'm a radioholic. I have a problem. I also have other collections too that I have a problem.
Oh,
not that I want help. I just have a problem. Just leave me be. I'm happy. This is my happy place.
Right, reminds me of the folks that stress over getting the exact right antenna and the antenna wire to start with. I think a lot of people starting out end up in this analysis paralysis where you just you can't make a decision because you've just got too much information in front of you.
Right.
And I always when it's just starting out, just get yourself on the air, get yourself a nice antenna that it doesn't have to be a fancy one, VHF, UHF, maybe like one of my J-pole antennas.
I know that sells those.
Because they work well. So and they'll get you on the air, which is important. And then from there you can just think of everything.
How that little crawler came up down there with your website. My producer
Yeah, my producer must have done that. So
Thanks, Christine.
So it gets you on the air, and it's a building block as you kind of progress. So oh man, we got some more questions are really starting to roll in here. But Sal thanks us for the RG213 question, but then also, what kind of HF rig do you have? And my original one, for 17 years, I ran on an ICOM IC718, just the basic bare bones.
They still make it. It's a great little radio.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And then I got my FT891 that I use for all my portable stuff. And in the shack, I replaced my IC718 with the FTDX3000. So I'm a Yaesu guy now, I guess.
That was my fault, by the way, guys. So I tell you, I have a problem. By the way, I don't have a what grinds my gears planned for tonight, so this is my
this is going to be your gear grinder.
So this is just before COVID hit. I think 2019. I had December of 2019. I had the money and I ordered my FTDX 3000. I was a little worried about how that would be handled showing up at the door and my wife seeing it. So I just changed the address to KB9 DBR Antennas. And it was delivered to Michael's house. It's perfect. Now I can kind of sort of integrate it with everything else, and the wife will, maybe it won't be so bad.
It won't be so
box shows up on the door. Questions are going to be asked, okay? If a radio is in the shack and another radio is not in the shack, it's kind of like Indiana Jones walking up and swapping out the golden idol with the bag of sand. It might work, or a big ball will come rolling at you with poison darts. You don't know, but you're going to try it. That worked for a while. And I had an IC756, an original one, and I had sold that. And they're both black, so my wife didn't quite notice much. They both look black, like a black radio. But I had it, and of course, it sat at Michael's house for a day or two, and he started looking at it. And a month or two later, he's like, "I'm thinking about getting the 3000." Well, why are you thinking about that, Michael? Because mine was sitting at your house for a couple of days. Did you try it out? Did you just reseal the box? So, anyways, so we both have 3000s, and they're just great radio. The receive on them is just phenomenal.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's some of the best receive that you can get out there. Unfortunately, Yaesu discontinued them. Their new SDR radios have a real superb receive as well.
Yep.
But then in the field, I use the 897. I've had a lot of field radios, but the 897 is just a beast out there. You can't.
Oh yeah.
So that's what we got right now, and that other than a couple of other things laying around here, that's pretty much all we use. Pretty much
it. Yeah, I don't for HF I don't have a whole lot, so it's
I used to have a whole stable of HF radios. I've let some of them go out to pasture.
You thinned the herd a little bit. So.
I had to. There's so many. And it got to the point where I opened up the box, like, when's the last time I've used this? Oh, I haven't used this yet. Oh, God. I had to. I went on a buying spree and I had to let some go. So.
Wild Cascadia asks, what's the best for a 10-meter mast radio, no more than 20, and no more than 20 feet to the radio? Spiderbean mast is not the most rigid, so the lighter the better, I figured. That's a good question. 10 meters is almost it's like 30 feet. So
right, a quarter wave below ground at minimum. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so 10 is that weird band.
Well, no, that 10 meter mast, a 10 meter.
Oh.
A 10 meter mast,
Bring that back up,
30 foot. So yeah.
10-meter mast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I know the spider bee mast is really wobbly.
Yeah. I would. 30 feet is for like a mast unsupported, like a pipe. That's wobbly.
I'd get, if you're going to use something semi-permanent, I'd get those aluminum military mast segments.
Yeah.
And because that's going to be they make them in fiberglass and they make them in aluminum.
Don't use the fiberglass.
Oh, the fiberglass are terrible, but
Don't have
the aluminum ones, once you guy them, those things are rock solid.
Yeah.
So,
and they're like $6 a piece if you get them surplus.
They're cheap. Yeah,
right.
They're cheap.
Yeah, they're cheap. I've used them. They're pretty cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can get those things close to 40 feet in the air without them getting too crazy.
Yeah, for $100 you can get them guyed up.
Yeah.
The base. They go on eBay or Amazon. They sell the bases. They sell guy kits, and it's pretty easy to do. And 30, 40 feet's not a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. John asks, for POTA, can you run an ATS 120 with a 7300? I do not believe so, unless somebody's got an interface.
Not directly. So the ATS 120 is a Yaesu product. So I played with these a little bit. I used to have, I think I still have a 100. So basically, it's a DC bias. You're sending RF, which is AC, down there, but then you have to send a DC voltage as well to adjust the coil, and it's usually like 7 volts to reduce it, 10 volts or more to increase it. The ICOM tuning system does not follow that protocol, so it's because that's a Yaesu thing. And it's on Yaesu's more recent ones. And I don't think there's a converter box out there for the two of them.
I don't believe there is. No.
So you would be better off using a Yaesu radio with that. I think the FT100, the 800 series, so the 817, 857, 897, 891 will work with a 120.
Yep.
Right. And I think 991 will work with a 120. But the ICOMs are not going to work with that.
No. So.
But do you need it? Well, caveat. You could run the internal tuner on the antenna. That might work. You're not adjusting the tuning system in the antenna itself. You're just adjusting the tuner in the antenna, or the antenna tuner in the radio, to compensate for whatever SWR you have.
Whatever mismatch. Yeah.
Exactly. So in a pinch, it would work. I don't think it'd be very efficient, though. Okay.
No, it wouldn't.
No, it wouldn't. To do it, you could probably sell the ATAS 120 for a pretty penny and go buy a Wolf River coil or a Buddy Stick.
Get something automated like a High Sierra or something too.
Right, a screwdriver antenna.
Yeah,
right.
Screwdriver. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. Back to the mast question. Yeah. Wild Cascadia's got RG8X up the mast. I wonder if the break and coax to an LMR 400 piece helps at all. To know it. I don't think it's not gonna hurt you, especially on HF frequencies, to use something lighter weight up the mast and then use a lower loss cable for the rest of the run.
Right, but you have the connection then, and you always have a little bit of loss in a connection.
Well, but that's like 0.125 dB.
Right, but your difference in your loss going up with the different coax is going to be about the same. But connection is a point of failure.
Yep. Yeah. So, all right. I think we got a couple more questions here. Oh, here we go. MFJ makes a tuner box to work with ICOM with the Yaesu 120.
Okay,
so somebody,
if anyone's got it, MFJ's got it. Right? You could probably run a helicopter off of with a 120 with something from MFJ. They probably only
Yeah,
made 3 of them, but thanks, MFJ. You guys got everything.
it's the ham radio problem solver.
Problem reducer sometimes. So, I love MFJ. Don't get me wrong, but
Well,
like they have a like ultrasonic receiver, like a dish that you can listen to power line noise and see if you have power line problems or find bats.
mm-hmm.
Really? Like, MFJ, what were you smoking that night when you decided to make bats?
I know, it's crazy.
MFJ,
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, let's kind of start to wrap things up here. Upcoming videos. I'm going to be on the air this weekend. We're going spring camping season starts. It's a little bit later than I was hoping for, but spring has finally sprung here in Wisconsin, and we'll be at Governor Dodge State Park in the southwestern corner of the state. So listen for me Saturday, probably maybe even Friday night. We'll see what the weather gives us for Parks on the Air activation. I think it's K1451 or something like that. So.
Yeah. No, hopefully you got good weather. I think Friday and Saturday are supposed to be good.
Yes, it was supposed to.
Maybe in the 70s.
Yeah, 60s. It's going to be in the 60s all weekend. So I can live with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it was looking like rain on Friday, but I think the rain is kind of pushed off. So we got that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We got. She's getting kind of crap when she's coming down.
Okay, so we'll finish things up here. A couple of upcoming videos. I got some more product review videos coming up. I got some a new solar panel on the camper, and we'll have so next week there'll be a review video on this new solar panel I'm working on. And think that people over at Bouge RV, they're the ones that sent me that 120 watt panel last month. Well, they sent me a 200 watt panel for the camper. So we got more power.
They're making power now.
Making power now. and a charge controller. So we'll be talking about charge controllers towards the end of the month. So I'll look forward to that. And a couple some other fun stuff that'll be happening in May. So it's got some really good content coming ahead.
You usually have a Hamvention deal coming up in May. Possibly.
It's I got to look at my inventory and see if I can do scratch and dent again this year. If I got enough.
Did you sell the pink one that we made?
No, I still got the pink one.
You know what? One of these days we're gonna auction that off. We'll do it for a cause or something, right? We better wrap this up because the dog is barking because she needs to go outside. So
all right. So
I don't want to have one of those weird videos on here. Okay.
Well, she waited this long, so it's
right.
We'll close things out. Thanks a lot, everybody. We tried to get to everybody's questions, and unfortunately, it wasn't. Well, we'll try. If I can follow up with any of these, I'll try to do that as.
And we're to look up the Toroid question for sure. Yeah,
the Toroid question. We'll watch for a video because I think that's good video content.
Absolutely.
So, with that, I'm just going to pull up my screen here. So next live stream is Thursday, June 2nd, 7:00 p.m. And it'll be Bon Voyage Joe as he heads off to Belize.
Yep.
And we'll tell you all about our field day plans next month. So June where we'll be talking field day. Hope to see you then. But with that, everybody have a good evening. I'm Michael, KB9VBR.
And I'm Joe, KD9CJX 73.
73.